Hello, this is Dr. D, and today we are going to talk about the posterior pituitary gland. Let's see. Okay, so like we said, the pituitary gland is located in the depression called the sella turcica, right? We talked about this. And here we talked about the anterior lobe and the anterior lobe and the posterior lobe. Now, the posterior lobe, if you look at it under the microscope, what you will see is, or what you'll notice is that it has mostly fibers, nerve fibers. Whereas the anterior pituitary, you can see distinct cells. Okay, and we'll see this in the lab histology slides. So so you'll know that this is the posterior pituitary. Why? Watch. The hypothalamus has these cells or these specialized neurons, and the terminal ends of the hypothalamus, that means their axons, these are the ones that are going to release their neurosecretory substance but have a hormone-like function, all right, or hormone function. So that is why this is called neurohypophysis. Okay, so you're not going to see distinct cells like the anterior pituitary. You're going to see nerve endings. Go back to your 201 and you remember this is how your neurons look like, right? So here's the soma and here's the axon. All right, so that's what I'm trying to explain to you, that the neurohypophysis will consist of many, what did I just say? Axons. And from the axon terminal, these neurosecretions are going to be released. So often you will see that posterior pituitary releases, not produces, the hormone, because production is taking place where? Here in the hypothalamus. This is just releasing it. All right, so don't get confused. All right, so there are only two hormones produced by the released by the posterior pituitary. The first one is ADH, anti-diuretic hormone. Now here, like I said, this is stored at the end of the neurosecretory cells until ADH is needed. What does it do? This will cause water retention by the kidneys, all right? They will cause the kidney tubules to reabsorb water. Often ADH is released when there's a blood loss, when suddenly the blood volume goes down. You need to increase the blood volume. How do you increase blood volume? You reabsorb water. You do not allow the loss of water. If the water increases, you retain water, then the volume of blood will go up. Therefore, blood pressure will also go up. Got it? So here, it also plays a role in controlling problems from blood loss. We just talked about that, yes? Now here, so this will cause the retention of fluids without getting into too much excessive detail. All right. So here, what it is that the blood volume affects ADH secretion. We talked about this, right? We talked about the stretch receptors and signals going to the hypothalamus. As soon as the ADH is released, then what will happen is the uterine muscles and kidney tubules, the ADH is going to act on the kidney tubules and reabsorb water. So again, the problem is when there is hyposecretion or there is hypersecretion. Okay, that's the problem that you have to talk about. So hyposecretion, you end up with what is called the diabetes insipidus. INSIPIDUS, insipidus. So it has nothing to do with sugar. It is that it is very dilute urine. All right. And so what happens is that the water is not being retained. And therefore what happens is you will have large amount of dilute urine. Unfortunately, it got the name diabetes. So you're thinking sugar. No, it has nothing to do with insulin, nothing to do with sugar issues, elevated blood sugar. No. Here what happens is that the ADH, failure to reabsorb water, and you'll end up with very dilute urine, and therefore what? Low sodium, right, in the blood. And if there's low sodium, you'll end up with extremely low what? Blood pressure. Hyper, of course, if you have excess amount of ADH, what? You'll reabsorb too much of water, so you'll end up with constant what? Edema, swelling. Okay. All right. The next hormone is oxytocin. Oxytocin is also antidiuretic, but less potent than ADH. So directly we know what's the function of oxytocin. In addition, oxytocin plays an important role in females' uterine walls during contraction or labor. All right. So we'll study this more in detail in Unit 3. But what about, we'll study this. But for now, know that as soon as the uterine walls start contracting, then it will cause the hypothalamus to produce what? Oxytocin, which will cause the mother to go into labor. All right. So here, what about in males? So here in males, I should have written in males, and they did these studies in rats. Therefore, in male, there's a human species, of course. In males, oxytocin results in what? Helps in what? Ejaculation. All right. But another function is that it is also a cuddle hormone. This hormone is especially produced when you snuggle next to somebody, and it can be like a definite bonding hormone between a mother and a child, or with your partner, or with your pets. It doesn't matter. So this is the cuddle hormone that is released. That sudden, it's also called the love hormone, the burst of love that you have, or when you cuddle with your baby or cuddle with somebody that you love. That's why this oxytocin is being released. Now, whenever another function is, whenever oxytocin is produced, it will also result in stimulation of prolactin. All right. So here it will result in milk production. Got it? And that's why what happens is, if you want, after labor and delivery, the mother is told to nurse the baby often, so that what happens is that the oxytocin is going to be released, and the milk production is going to also stimulate the oxytocin, and the oxytocin is going to cause the contraction of the what? Uterine walls. Okay, and vice versa. So adenoma of the pituitary is, and we'll talk about this in our case study. This is what happens is when there's a tumor in the glandular cells, and this will be, it can be in the anterior pituitary, and that will result in called the pituitary adenoma, and of course it will result in the excessive production of anterior pituitary hormones, which is not going to be very pleasant or good. So again, it depends upon the cell type, remember. And of course, if there's increased TSH, what will happen? You will have hyperthyroidism, okay? Increased GH, growth hormone, you will have acromegaly in adults. And increased prolactin, we know that it's increased breast milk production, infertility, and absence of menstrual cycle. We talked about this. All right, so I think with this we come to the end of our presentation. I thank you for listening to me. If there are questions or concerns, please communicate with me, and you have a good day. Thank you.